Well, hello, my friends. I'm Dennis Prager. The great debate for the last few months has been, well, that's not true. Now, I take back what I was about to say. So I'll tell you what I was about to say, and then I'll take it back. Great debate has been, what do I begin with? But it's not true. For the coronavirus time, it was clear the lockdown was the issue, and then the virus was the other issue. I thought that the lockdown was the primary issue in the world, and I still do. And I think I turned out right. I was somewhat of a lonely voice. I was not alone, I was just lonely. But with the beginning of the protests and the violence, and I am not claiming they are the same, then there were so many issues. For example, do I begin with a big macro subject? What do young Americans have to believe in? It is huge. It doesn't get huger. Or do I begin with the obscene charge of murder against the policeman in Georgia? Murder. He could be liable for the death penalty. Did you see how he spoke to the man for 26 minutes? Did he strike you as a premeditated murderer? Did he strike you as wanting to murder the man? I had a policeman on here 2 days ago for an hour, member of the Los Angeles Police Department, and he felt that it could have been handled differently and a mistake might have been made. He emphasizes might have. And a mistake is a mistake and murder is murder. Turns out that the man had a number of prior arrests and was afraid that with this arrest he would, in fact, go back to prison. That's the reason he put up a struggle. When you're drunk in a driver's seat and the police stop you and you fail a sobriety test and they're good to you and they just want to take you in, you don't start fighting them. The attitude toward police is obviously very different than it was in the past. The isolated instances, and they are isolated, we have the numbers. That's the only reason I could say they're isolated, are blown up to be the norm. The number of interactions of police with difficult people, to say the least, is remarkable. I just don't see why idealistic leftists graduating our colleges don't go into police work. And they want to make more money. They don't want to put their life on the line. But somebody has to. And then we judge them as if under circumstances almost none of us ever experience, they must do the exact right thing. They must protect the public and not apply one iota of more force than is absolutely necessary, as if they know always how much is necessary. The DA is playing a game. That's all he's doing. He's up for re-election, and he just wants to show how tough he is. On the macro, I actually remember America. It existed until the Obama administration. And I remember in America where overwhelmingly in daily life, and I used to say it on the radio, I watch in daily life and I interact myself, and it seems to me blacks and whites get along pretty darn well in the United States of America. And I do believe that to a large, not entire extent, that has been shattered by the left because everything they touch, they destroy. It is, I mean, I've been thinking about this. I know most of you who are white can't do this. It's too difficult and painful. But it would be interesting to ask a black colleague at work, let alone a black friend, in as honest and non-confrontational a way possible, do you believe every white is a racist? I wish that every black American could be asked that question. And I have no idea what the answer would be. Is this a left-wing position, meaning left-wing whites, as well as left-wing blacks? Or is this a left-wing position and a black position? Every white is a racist. Is every non-Jew an anti-Semite? My grandfather thought that. Came from Eastern Europe. So I'm curious. Some very big questions are up there. Will people return to football? I wouldn't go to football or watch it on TV now if I were a fan. It would be difficult because it's a beautiful diversion sport. But they've poisoned that too, and Roger Goodell, like Drew Brees, went from one day, you know what, we have a flag and we stand for it. And that's the policy of the NFL too. Oh, are you kidding? Oh, please. Of course you should not stand for the national anthem. It has nothing to do. This is the Orwellian position we're supposed to take. It has nothing to do with respect for the flag. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and take your hats off. I won't rise or take my hat off, or I take my hat off, but I won't rise. But it has nothing to do with the national anthem. And I'm supposed to say, of course that's true. General Motors tomorrow will be stopping work for 8 minutes and 26 seconds, whatever the 46 seconds. In order to say what? That the country is racist? Here's another interesting question for people to ask. America is racist, is the claim. You always have to say, compared to what? All adjectives imply comparison, right? If you say so-and-so is overweight, compared to what? So-and-so is tall or short, compared to what? In certain societies, this person will be tall. In certain societies, this person will be normal. What is that? What do they say? In the land of the blind, the one-eyed person has perfect vision, or whatever it is. Compared to what country is America racist? Minorities in the United States compared to minorities in other countries, how do they do? We were just speaking, or my wife was just speaking, I don't recall exactly the circumstance, to some Indonesians. Chinese, Indonesian. Oh, yes, I know who. Friends of ours, their child is marrying into that family. And they were speaking about how the Chinese are mistreated in Indonesia. Do you know that? I suspect not.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. A call is going out now for the dismantling of the Minneapolis Police Department. The president of the city council said this when asked about what to do in the case of a break-in.
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
There's no doubt that our cities and communities need restoration, including greater peaceful engagement between police and citizens. Yet the idea that wanting protection is privilege is not sound. In fact, it's absurd and won't restore anything. Police who act unjustly are accountable to the rule of law and must be. But there is no need to qualify what a society without police will look like. More harm will surely be done. May coming days bring greater safety and meaningful restoration. I'm Owen Strand.
ADF, fighting for those whose religious freedom is being violated. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The 5-minute campaign strategy as of today, would it be spend all your time, resources, energy, and policy on PA and Wisconsin?
Well, it's not going to be that simple, because the Democrats are going to be attempting to go after Arizona. They've signaled that if they win Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Arizona, Biden's president of the United States. They're going to go after Florida because it's perennially close. They're going to have to make a decision about North Carolina. Are they going to go there? They're thinking they want to try and do Georgia, but they may not have the resources. So the problem is you can't just simply say, okay, I'm going to put all my chips on Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, because they're going to have to be playing defense in these other states. Now, the advantage that Trump has is that he's got more resources, and he's got a bigger, better digital infrastructure, which will matter a lot. So, he's going to be able to play in all those states. He can play in the 3 Great Lakes states. He can play in Iowa. He can play in North Carolina. He can play in Florida. He can play in Arizona. But I'm not yet certain that the Biden campaign is going to have the resources to compete in all of those states. I mean, Florida is a $50 to $70 million proposition, and North Carolina is a $35 to $50 million proposition. So those, and we haven't talked about Ohio. Isn't that interesting how little we talk about Ohio this election?
My home state has gained its confidence under Michael DeMine. My home state is solid red. You had to worry about it in your elections, but we've got that locked up now.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. If anybody doubted how strong America is, look at all we've been through in the past few months and understand why we're still standing. We're still standing because we believe in the bonds that bring us together. We believe in freedom and liberty. And we believe that after all we've been through, nothing can defeat us. So let's cheer as America gets ready to rebuild and remake our lives bigger, stronger, better than ever before. Keep it here to find out how. We are the answer. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
For folks like you and me, this was a moment ago, especially for you. You lived through this. You were an adult. This was your friend. This was a student. And the parallels with what are happening in this country today are so striking. I mean, we could have talked about this book just because it's the thing.
Huh? They need a demonstration. We want the police. Did you know that you can see visual highlights? Did you know that you can see visual highlights of my show every day on my YouTube channel? So sign up today, go to youtube.com, type in Dennis Prager channel, and click subscribe. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you'll be notified every time we put up a new clip. All right, I want to remind you that this is a great time. These times pass, and then you kick yourself, hopefully not too hard, To get a great rate on a mortgage, a refi, a new fi, hi-fi, or Wi-Fi. I'm just kidding around, but refi or new fi, or even a reverse mortgage. This is all done with two guys who have been working throughout the entire lockdown, Andrew and Todd at Sierra Pacific Mortgage. So if you are considering a refi, new purchase, cash out, refi, or reverse mortgage, don't wait. Go to getandrewandtodd.com now. They will navigate these waters for you. They're at Sierra Pacific Mortgage, 888-888-1172, or go to andrewandtodd.com, and they will take it from there. Sierra Pacific Mortgage, you prefer to call 888-888-1172, or andrewandtodd.com. So a friend of ours who's with the LAPD just texted Alan about the number of blacks who've been shot. What was the number you gave me? 6 last night. In L.A., just in L.A. Of course, in Chicago, it's considerably higher number. 32 in the last 2 weeks. And not by police. And presumably not by whites. So it would be interesting if there were a demonstration in the inner city. We would like more policemen. What would be done with them? Would these people be dismissed by the rich whites who write for the New York Times editorial page as Uncle Toms, as sellouts, as fascists? What would they be dismissed as? I believe with all my heart that the average leftist doesn't give a damn about black deaths in the inner city. I believe it as deeply as I believe anything. Let's put it this way, as deeply as I believe anything, I can't absolutely prove. Because you can't prove what people feel. But you can prove how people act. And they ignore this. The answer to Black Lives Matter, to that label, is not all lives matter. Of course, that's true. All lives matter. But the intent of Black Lives Matter is to say they haven't in the past. That's the intent of the slogan. So answering all lives matter doesn't fully take up the argument that is being posed by the phrase Black Lives Matter. So there is, however, a better answer. All black lives matter. And that they would find that offensive and ask them why. Why would you not change your name to All Black Lives Matter? Because it doesn't comport with the depiction of the left of the United States, which is that of a majority white culture that is systemically racist. All whites are racist. We live in the land of the lie, abetted by big business. But I've said this all of my life, since I studied communism. When I saw all the big businesses that wanted to do business with the Soviet Union. Generally speaking, big business is necessary, but the people in it are conscienceless. Big business has no conscience. So what they do is they cover their non-conscience with acts, kabuki plays, as they call it, like General Motors will do with its 8 minutes and 46 seconds of cessation of work tomorrow. Yes. I was thinking about young Americans, something I will go back to later in the show. This is a true crisis, and I remember I have been conducting Jewish High Holy Day services for 13 years. The Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur services. I've been conducting them. And many years ago, one of my sermons was on the lack of heroes for young people in America and how unbelievably important it is. Can you name me a hero for young blacks from the past? Did I say young blacks? That was a mistake. Young people. Name me a hero for young Americans of any color. When George Washington is villainized, you have reached the nadir. They don't, so remember, when I was a kid, and was already dying by the time I was in high school and certainly college. But I do remember in America where In God We Trust and God Bless America were very powerful statements that meant a lot. And then almost overnight, they began to be ridiculed. God is ridiculous. Patriotism is ridiculous. What's left? What is left? What does a young American have to believe in? Anti-racism? Anti-carbon emissions? Think about it. What does a young American have? The flag means nothing. The church means nothing. And the history means nothing. Right? I acted in a George Washington Washington's birthday play in an Orthodox religious day school when I was in elementary school. I wonder how many have that now. Schools in general, religious schools in particular. Yes, indeed, you can't fill the gap with the nihilism of the left. You can try, and it works for a period of time. But nihilism doesn't substitute for meaning.
Attention business owners.
Dennis
As
Prager
America
Show.
gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered sense of security has left many individuals and businesses in shambles. While the aftershocks could be felt for months to come, they may not have to. There is hope for an extraordinary turnaround of your bottom line. But will you be prepared for America's grand reopening? All signs point to the biggest business opportunity of our lifetime, coming as early as this summer. A recent survey of local advertisers shows a 10-point jump in the number of local advertisers who plan to maintain or increase their spending. 1 in 4 businesses expect to spend more in advertising by the end of June, and more than half expect to restart or surge their spending by this summer. As the numbers forecast increased spending from advertisers across the country, will your message be seen and heard? Will your business benefit from the pent-up consumer demand? Salem Surround is prepared to help you deliver the right advertising message to reach all potential customers wherever they are. Your business can be ready for a post-COVID-19 economy, but the time to act is now. Be at the front of the line as our economy begins to fire on all cylinders once again. For a free assessment of your marketing message and strategy, visit salemsurround.com or contact your local media strategist today.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
That's a good question to ask a leftist friend. Do you think? Do you agree with Lincoln said that America is the last best hope of mankind or of the earth? But they would say no. Typical article I have here, The Atlantic, which produces massive amounts of nonsense by intellectuals. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's become nihilistic. We are living in a failed state. The coronavirus didn't break America. It revealed what was already broken. And this guy's a staff writer, George Packer, for The Atlantic. I invite George Packer onto the show. It's useless. It's useless. They never debate. Isn't that interesting? Why don't they debate? We would go on any of their shows, any. I remember being on CNN. Don Lemon used to invite me pretty often. And everybody else disagreed with me. I don't care. I'll go on MSNBC. But they would never come on here. And then they would never have us on there. That's the point. The self-delusion of the left that they are the world of reason. That's what's so amazing. We are the irrational in their eyes.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I want to share with you Raynard Jackson's comments because this came from the White House where the president is sort of, in his way, on a listening tour. You know, I know that the rap against Donald Trump is that he doesn't listen to anybody. And that, of course, is a lot of hogwash. He does listen. He ultimately makes decisions based on his gut, on his instincts, on what got him to the White House in the first place. But quite frankly, anybody who's been around him recognizes
this show is now available on live video streaming on Town Hall TV, as well as our website. If you want to watch the show, not just listen, go to townhall.com and click on the Town Hall TV button.
It's kind of off the beaten path.
It's nice to bring to you things that can be uplifting.
I wish they would quit lying about
And
what you've
here's
done
an example.
specifically for the black
There
community.
is a new
So you got
documentary.
radical liberal
How many
journalists
parts
like
is it?
Joy Reid from
4-part
MSNBC,
documentary
Don
on the
Lemon from
Coast
CNN,
Guard
Roland Martin, who are
that
putting
will
more
be
poison
appearing
into the
on
black community
the
than any drug
History
dealer,
Channel.
who are killing more
I have
black
the
folks than any
documentary's producer and director, Cork Friedman, on the line. Mr. Friedman, welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
Mr. Prager, how are you? Good morning.
I'm fine. You know, I've never met a Cork before. And I was, when I said something, oh, yeah, Mr. Friedman, I thought, wait, what if Cork is a woman? How did you get the name Cork?
You know, I may never really truly know the answer to that question. My parents gave it to me at birth. And the story goes that apparently back in the 60s, there was an expression that somebody was a real corker. I was born with bright red hair and apparently a lot of personality, and they named me Corky. And as I grew up, I actually did a little more research, and I saw that around the same time, there was a clown named Corky the Clown with red hair. So I'll never know, but that's my guess.
All right. I feel bad. Are you asked this often, or do people hesitate lest they come across as anti-Corkist?
No, you know, I don't hear it that often. You know, people either get it wrong or they get it right and they move on.
Right. Well, congratulations on your documentary. It's necessary for a lot of reasons. One, we need as much uplifting fare out there as possible. And the other is that the Coast Guard, I'm sure you would agree, doesn't get its due.
Absolutely not. And that is one of our prime objectives in this series, is to show not only the country, but the world, everything that the Coast Guard does here in the United States and abroad.
Give the three biggies that the Coast Guard does.
Well, the one that everybody knows is their maritime patrol and search and rescue. If you get in trouble on a boat or anything that's generally associated with the water. Coast Guard's going to be there, and that's ocean, and all the Great Lakes in between. Law enforcement is the one that most people don't know about. There's a division of the United States Coast Guard that is called TACLET, and it stands for the Tactical Law Enforcement Teams. And these are the men and women, the elite men and women, that actually deploy not only on U.S. ships, but on international. And they do all the counter-narcotics work that keeps all the illicit drugs from reaching the United States of America.
How many drugs How many drugs did they stop, roughly?
You know, I think that they stop 2/3 of the illicit drugs that come to the United States. It's a very unique mission. TACLET actually deploys on U.S. Navy ships, other World Navy ships. They are the ones that actually have the ability, the license to actually do these missions. The rest of the crews and the ships can get them out there. But when it comes to the takedowns, it's very, it's Department of Homeland Security. It's DHS. So it's changed since 9/11. The Coast Guard has expanded rapidly, and the amount of missions that they do and different kinds of missions vary. And, everything from law enforcement, search and rescue, to pollution and everything in between.
What do you call a member of the Coast Guard?
I personally call them coasties. They refer to each other as coasties as well. It is, look at if you make a pie and the smallest, tiniest little slice is the Coast Guard compared to all of the other, parts of the military here in the United States. It's a very small part. About 40,000 active duty members. So that's not very many, and they're spread all over the country and all over the world.
It's not a branch of any other service.
Is it a branch? No, it is.
Right, it is its own. Is there a Coast Guard Academy?
Yeah, there is a Coast Guard Academy.
And where is that located?
That, I believe, is up in Connecticut.
And they will obviously graduate any number of people, just as the Naval Academy or West Point will in their cases.
Sure. So relatively speaking, there's really two ways that you can join the Coast Guard. One is you can go to the academy, and ultimately your goal is to become an officer. And you could also join as an enlisted, and you can go to boot camp in Cape May, and then you get sent out after boot camp, and you find your niche.
Is the head of the Coast Guard a member of the body of military leaders who get together? I'll be back in a moment with Cork Friedman and the series coming out on the History Channel. And it's easy time now. It's Relief Factor, which I take every day. And I can't commend it too much to your attention. If you are in bodily pain, and it isn't nerve pain is its own world, I ask you to try this out. There's a 3-week quick start. I always mention this. I like the fact that they tell you if it doesn't work in 3 weeks, it probably won't work. Simple. So give that a try for $19.95 at relieffactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Is it of importance to us in interpreting the events of the last 2+ weeks that we are seeing all of this happen predominantly in hardcore Democrat-run cities, Gianna?
You know what's interesting about that is that Democrats won't even take credit for the fact that a lot of their policies have caused this to happen. You think about somebody like Joe Biden, who goes into George Floyd funeral with a video message talking about racial reconciliation and healing. Meanwhile, he's a big part of the reason why we have so much division in this country today. You think about the 94 crime bill. If we're going to talk about liberal cities, you can't forget about my hometown of Chicago, where you got a mayor there who provided, or rather asked for, 375 National Guardsmen in the city of Chicago and put them all in the downtown area. Meanwhile, the poor black areas on the south side and west sides are left to fend for themselves. You're talking about minority-owned businesses ruined, which they don't have money to come back. Some of these folks don't even have insurance. And that's across all American spectrums, whether you be white, black, or indifferent. We just lived through COVID. And now you got these liberals whose policies have created a huge mess from a financial tax purpose, a tax basis. And now you're disenfranchising poor people more by way of your policies, even through protests and looting. This is unimaginable. Who would have thought that this is where we would be in 2020? But if anybody is really listening and watching what's going on, this should be the best reason not to vote for liberals in any capacity. That's any office, whether it be president, Senate, House, state Senate, state House, mayor, any office. You shouldn't be voting for Democrats. And that's what I've taken away from this time.
Keep up with what's America has been doing some soul searching lately. Perhaps you noticed. We're examining what's right with America and what can be made better. No other country does this kind of introspection better than us. Some of what we found we don't like and will change. Every life has the right to be treated with dignity and respect. That includes our law enforcement as well as every skin color. We've been through this before in America, and we always came out stronger. We will this time too. Our hosts will make sure of that. We are the answer. Trending.
PragerU's Will Witt poses a fascinating question. What if the left and right got everything each wanted? What would the country look like under those two different visions? Find out at PragerU.com, where we teach what isn't taught. All right. Just want to remind you, I'm speaking with Cork Friedman, the documentary producer and director. The documentary in question will be on History Channel. It is on the Coast Guard, 4 parts. So finally, I was asking, are they a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff?
They are. So the Commandant of the United States, Mr. Carl Schultz, is actually Admiral Schultz, is a de facto member of the Joint Chief of Staff in the Department of Defense.
Right. So what do you want people to leave with after watching?
Coast Guard Mission Critical is probably the most intense and comprehensive television series that's ever been produced about a military branch. You know, and as we were just discussing before, most people don't know what the Coast Guard does, and they've never seen it. And that's going to change with this show. Coast Guard Mission Critical, it provides a unique, I'll use the word thrilling, but it's more of an experience. I think a lot of people, they hear documentary and they think, oh boy, all right, let me get my pillow. This is a docuseries, but it's been composed, and it's been shot, and it's being edited like nothing you've seen before. We're using very new technology and putting cameras actually on the operators so that you're actually in the action. So, people have seen a rescue swimmer get lowered down to the water, and then he swims, and you rescue somebody, and they pull them back up again. For the very first time, that rescue swimmer is going to be wearing a helmet camera, a 360 helmet camera. And you are going to become that rescue swimmer. And when you swim up to that person who believes they are dying, and you look into their eyes and you see that, you're going to feel that. So this show isn't just about eye candy. It's really about mind candy, too, and soul candy. It really brings out the human part of the Coast Guard as well.
And when does it begin?
I'm sorry?
When does it begin?
The show begins this Saturday, June 20th, on History at 7 a.m., and then there's a premiere of the same episode on the FYI network at 6 p.m. on Sunday.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations to you. I think you've done. I think you've made a contribution to this country.
Thank you, sir. It's a wonderful branch of the military. The men and women are the best, and
Oh, my fault. They're the best, and
they're the best, and I can't wait for America and the world to see it.
we will. Thank you, sir. We need all the uplift possible right now. Anyway, congratulations to him. I want to watch it. Very curious. I can't say I know much about the Coast Guard myself. All righty, everybody. Let's go to some of your calls here. All right. Detroit, Michigan, and Peter. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Dennis. Thanks for taking my call. It's great to talk to you again.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to share a quick anecdotal story here. My wife does a lot of freelance photography work here in the Detroit area, a lot of work for the auto companies. And in the last few days, she worked on a photo shoot for one of the big three. I won't name the company, but for one of their new vehicle releases. And she worked with a large, very diverse crew. A lot of African American, a large African American contingency, and she worked very closely with several of them and had some very candid conversations with them about what's going on in the world right now. And the general consensus she gathered was they think people are acting ridiculously. All the ridiculous virtue signaling, and basically people just need to chill out. And she said it was such a positive, eye-opening experience. And what I take away from it is that this isn't being driven so much by the African American community as it is by guilt-ridden white people who want to make the rest of us feel equally as guilty for whatever guilt they're harboring inside themselves. So it was really encouraging knowing that. She came away from it just feeling so much better about things in general, and it's just too bad that more people can't wrap their minds around this and can't see things from that perspective. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I hope the report is right. I thank you. This notion about guilt-ridden whites, I'm not entirely on board. If you are guilty of a sin, who the hell are you to say everybody else commits my sin? If you commit adultery, would you announce all men are adulterers or all women are adulterers? Why not? To me, it is the exact same thing as these unctuous, sanctimonious phonies with this white privilege books and what is it? Weak whites. What is the bestseller again? White Fragility, right. By the way, I invite her onto the show. I invite any of these people on. Okay? They never debate because it is a cardboard. It is an intellectual piece of tissue paper. You blow on it and the building falls down. The proverbial sandcastle. White guilt? Oh, please. It's leftist nihilism. It is not white guilt. First of all, you have to be guilty of doing something, not thinking something. This is why the left is totalitarian, because it guilts people over thoughts. I don't care whether you like my group. I care how you treat it. You know, I just finished another book. It's called Why. It's the name of the book. By a scholar about the Holocaust. He talks about a lot of people who rescued Jews were anti-Semites.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Mayor Jenny Durkan appeared with Chris Cuomo on CNN and characterized this takeover of a neighborhood in Seattle where you just heard the police chief characterize people pelting police officers with projectiles, screaming at them, attacking, and ultimately taking it over. But the mayor says these patriots are sort of just having a giant, fun-filled block party.
So I don't have to tell you about the situation on the ground in your city, but in terms of how it looks to the rest of the country and the president teeing it up as basically ineptitude, the inability to control your own streets, is that fair criticism?
So I know it will shock you that the president is perhaps not giving an accurate or truthful picture. We've got 4 blocks in Seattle that you just saw pictures of that is more like a block party atmosphere. It's not an armed takeover. It's not a military junta. We will make sure that we can restore this, but we have block parties and the like in this part of Seattle all the time. It's known for that. So I think the president, number one, there is no threat right now to the public, and we're taking that very seriously. We're meeting with businesses and residents. But what the president threatened is illegal and unconstitutional. And the fact that he can think he can just tweet that and not have ramifications is just wrong.
I don't even know where to begin.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Joined by an old friend, Ralph Reed is the chairman and CEO of Century Strategies. He's been working as an advisor to presidents for as long as I've been behind this microphone. He's an old friend, but he has a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Welcome back. Good to talk to you, friend.
Thanks so much, Hugh. A big fan, regular listener of the show. Great to be with you.
I got to say, Appendix 1. When I'm done with God and Country, I'm just going to tear out Appendix 1 because it's my show every day between now and November. Would you explain to people what you did for everybody?
What we did, Hugh, was we put together a roughly 30-page appendix of all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of President Trump in just the first 3 years of his first term. And, it's not just on the issues that are dear to many Christians of life and religious freedom and originalists and constitutionalists on the courts and Israel, but it's really all the issues, including jobs and the economy and the budget and so forth. And it's updated regularly, by the way, on the Faith and Freedom website. So the reason why it was important for
Okay, everybody. Dennis Prager here. John in Libertyville, Illinois. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hi. I didn't hear your introduction.
That's okay.
Thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to follow up on something you said earlier, and it's connected to something you said last week. I understand that you dismissed the protests against the policing of urban communities as a bunch of leftist hysteria. I've heard you say that many times. Earlier, you said, how would the people at the New York Times, the white liberals at the New York Times, respond if the occupied area in Seattle was a protest for more police? And a week ago, you speculated, what if it was a pro-life demonstration? So I wanted to ask you, if Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem, or people occupied an area of Seattle, and when they were asked why, they said they were expressing their anguish over America turning away from God and allowing the Holocaust of abortion. You wouldn't say they hated America, right? You wouldn't say they were all hysterical.
No, but I'd want them all arrested.
Really?
Oh, there's no question. It isn't. It's not even a difficult question for me to monitor.
So you say Colin Kaepernick, hates America, doesn't respect the flag. You would say the same thing about anti-abortion protesters.
Yeah, if they kneeled at the flag, of course I would. I publicly announce it. Yesterday I gave a talk to a pro-life group, and I'm sure many of them are listening, and I'm telling you this: if any of you guys have football players who would take a knee on behalf of the unborn, I would say they were disrespecting the flag.
Do you know where Mr. Kaepernick got the idea to take a knee?
No.
He got it from a man named Nate Boyer, who's a Green Beret soldier, who told him it was a respectful way to protest. Do you think he hates America?
I personally am not preoccupied with people's feelings. The act. Okay, when people start laughing at me, I let them go. I don't never laugh at a caller. You don't laugh at me. It means you don't know how to debate. I don't give a damn what people feel. In fact, remember what I said right before the break? I read another scholarly book on the Holocaust, and the man mentioned that, interestingly, some of those who rescued Jews at the risk of their lives had anti-Semitic feelings. But they just didn't believe that, therefore, Jews should be murdered. I don't care what people feel. I care how people act. That is like the basic message of my life on the radio. But he laughed.
Attention business owners. As America gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered sense of security has left many individuals and businesses in shambles. While the aftershocks could be felt for months to come, they may not have to. There is hope for an extraordinary turnaround of your bottom line. But will you be prepared for America's grand reopening? All signs point to the biggest business opportunity of our lifetime, coming as early as this summer. A recent survey of local advertisers shows a 10-point jump in the number of local advertisers who plan to maintain or increase their spending. 1 in 4 businesses expect to spend more in advertising by the end of June, and more than half expect to restart or surge their spending by this summer. As the numbers forecast increased spending from advertisers across the country, will your message be seen and heard? Will your business benefit from the pent-up consumer demand? Salem Surround is prepared to help you deliver the right advertising message to reach all potential customers wherever they are. Your business can be ready for a post-COVID-19 economy, but the time to act is now. Be at the front of the line as our economy begins to fire on all cylinders once again. For a free assessment of your marketing message and strategy, visit salemsurround.com or contact your local media strategist today.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
What happens if there's a criminal out there with a gun and starts shooting people? Who's going to respond if there's no police force?
Look, it is our top priority to keep every single member of our community safe. And if you look back at the last 150 years of our police department, it is becoming increasingly clear that that model of policing isn't working. So we need to invite in our whole community, the 9 members of the city council that came from every corner of our city to stand together to make this commitment. We don't have all the answers. And what we committed to was a community process to help reimagine public safety.
Stop for a second. This is just babble. This is just incoherent babble. I have been to Minnesota and to Minneapolis scores of times. It's just nuts. I don't know how Minneapolis elected a nutty city council that made this nutty person their city council president. But the idea that after 150 years, the Minnesota Police Department has to be defunded, that's nuts. This is the Democratic Party. This is Lisa Bender, Democrat, Minnesota Democrat Farm Labor Party, cut number 18.
Do you understand that the word dismantle or police free also makes some people nervous? For instance, what if in the middle of the night, My home is broken into. Who do I call?
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may
Stop.
mean...
It's insane. The Democratic Party is insane.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Away. Hey, folks, welcome back. I'm talking to Charlie Kirk. Charlie, one of the most disturbing things I've seen recently is some of these activists who are clearly bullies. I mean, there's a violence. You can feel it, that they're very angry and they're approaching strangers on the street and demanding that these strangers take a knee, or that the cops take a knee. And I just think I've never seen anything so ugly that cops are being yelled at to take a knee. I mean, they should say, well, I'll take a knee if you take a knee for Jesus Christ. You go first.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal point, and I'm going to use it, which is, these are people that won't kneel for God, but they'll kneel because of some sort of pre-described class guilt. And so this is a really important point, Eric, which is this whole idea of white privilege is a racist and sinister lie that is taught to our kids from a very, very young age. And I find the whole idea morally reprehensible, that your identity, your skin color, that's not even your identity, by the way, that's just your appearance. Let's just make that very clear. That identity actually can mean a lot more. It could be your thoughts, your feelings, your worldview. And actually what has made the West so different, which was an idea that Jesus talked about, and people don't recognize this, is that equality under the law was nowhere to be seen. I mean, the Roman Republic paled in comparison to the Christian ethic. When Christ said, no, you're all equal under the eyes of God. We just forget and we just throw that all out in our society. That's why Trump holding up that Bible was so significant.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. If anybody doubted how strong America is, look at all we've been through in the past few months and understand why we're still standing. We're still standing because we believe in the bonds that bring us together. We believe in freedom and liberty. And we believe that after all we've been through, nothing can defeat us. So let's cheer as America gets ready to rebuild and remake our lives bigger, stronger, better than ever before. Keep it here to find out how. We are the answer. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
My guest is Jason Riley. He is the board member of the Wall Street Journal, also senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. Jason, what do you think are the remaining barriers for people to escape poverty, Black people?
The remaining barriers are largely government-created barriers, denying kids the ability to choose the schools they want to attend, or at least their parents choosing the schools that they want their children to attend. When Black aspiring entrepreneurs want to start a business in a neighborhood, there are plenty of barriers there. So I think they're largely government barriers. I mean, you mentioned the title of one of my books, Please Stop Helping Us. I don't think there's a government solution out there that's going to save Black America. I think it's mostly about Black America, or about government getting out of the way, minimum wage laws that price Blacks out of work and so forth. You know all these arguments, but that's not how the other side measures barriers. They look at disparate outcomes, racially disparate
So you have played a tremendous role in the development of my thinking. So I just thought you should know that. Now, that little sidebar here was the result of something I wanted to say about thinking about a call. I don't normally think about calls. But there was a black caller a couple of days ago who disagreed with me about my position, which is rock solid, my position. You may say rock solid wrong, but it is rock solid. The human ideal is to be colorblind. That is, if that is not true, then I have wasted my time studying and writing about the Bible. The entire biblical view is race doesn't matter. We are all created in God's image. God has no race. End of issue. Thank you. Okay? The only people who differ with that is the left wing today and the racists of the past. The left and traditional racism have identical views on race. Okay? That many Americans many of whom have good hearts, have bought the leftist racist position that race matters, shows you the ability to brainwash people and is very disconcerting. Liberals, if they took liberalism seriously, they don't. They take anti-conservatism seriously. But if liberals took liberalism seriously, as Alan Dershowitz does, as Dave Rubin does, and some others, they would realize how racist leftism is. That's the real racism of any numbers today. The very notion that you believe race matters, which is the title of, what is his name again, the Princeton professor? He's in, Cornell West. He has a book called Race Matters. That's his thesis. Race matters. If race doesn't matter, he's out of a job. These people's, the woman who wrote White Fragility, she's out of a job if race doesn't matter. These people make money hawking race matters. Moral people cannot believe race matters. Get it? You cannot be both. You can be moral in other areas. Humans are complex. But it is an immoral position that race matters. It is a racist position and an immoral. Anyway, this nice guy, I liked him. But he disagreed with me. He said, Dennis, I am a black man. I come with entire different world of experiences than you. If you don't acknowledge first and foremost my blackness, then you don't acknowledge my experiences. And that's the argument that is given. So I want to deal with that for a moment. When I meet anybody, anyone, white, black, Jew, Christian, atheist, Asian, I don't know any of their experiences. Does that mean, therefore, that you have to tell me all your experiences and then I can relate to you well? What if you were a white and you were molested by a parent? I wasn't molested by a parent. So your experience is utterly different in life than mine, just on those grounds alone. This notion that I must first know your experiences in order to relate well to you is new. I've never heard it before. Here is my bio. And by the way, what do I know about your experiences if I know you're black? What if you had a thoroughly middle-class upbringing where your blackness played a tangential role? There are people who meet me, most people who meet me for the first time do not know that I am a Jew. Does that disqualify them from relating to me well? And my religion is extremely important to me. This is so. Should everybody wear? Maybe we should all wear a sticker, not just with our name, but with our identity and with our major experiences of life. Hi, I am Jill, and I was molested by an uncle. That's pretty determinative. That's more determinative than your color. All blacks have the same experiences? All whites have the same experiences? I didn't have the same experiences as my neighbor growing up in Brooklyn, New York. This facile idiocy that is taught is this pseudo-intellectual stuff. White fragility, white privilege. You must know me through my color. Barack Obama was raised by a white family. His black father played no role in his life. He abandoned the family. Was Barack Obama's life shaped by his blackness? He would like to advertise that because that's clout today. Remember the anger that some leveled at Tiger Woods because he made no big deal about ethnicity or color? Hi, I'm Tiger Woods. I play golf. I try to play it really well. And for a time, he might have added, I'm a big fan of women. I wrote a piece. I'd love you to read it. It was a determinative moment in my life, in my love of America. And I was the only Jew in the Simi Valley, California Rotary Club in my late 20s and the early 70s. Well, no, late 70s, not early 70s, late 70s. So it was my late 20s, and I joined the Rotary Club, and I was the only Jew. And I wrote, I had taught Jewish history at Brooklyn College, City University of New York. And I've written a book on anti-Semitism, so I knew a lot about it. And I knew it was unique to America, that it didn't mean a damn thing that I was a Jew. That's America. We are going backwards thanks to the left. Leftism is morally reactionary.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Is it of importance to us in interpreting the events of the last 2+ weeks that we are seeing all of this happen predominantly in hardcore Democrat-run cities, Gianno?
You know what's interesting about that is that Democrats won't even take credit for the fact that a lot of their policies have caused this to happen. You think about somebody like Joe Biden, who goes into George Floyd funeral with a video message talking about racial reconciliation and healing. Meanwhile, he's a big part of the reason why we have so much division in this country today. You think about the 94 crime bill. If we're going to talk about liberal cities, you can't forget about my hometown of Chicago, where you got a mayor there who provided, or rather asked for, 375 National Guardsmen in the city of Chicago and put them all in the downtown area. Meanwhile, the poor black areas on the south side and west sides are left to fend for themselves. You're talking about minority-owned businesses ruined, which they don't have money to come back. Some of these folks don't even have insurance. And that's across all American spectrums, whether you be white, black, or indifferent. We just lived through COVID. And now you got these liberals whose policies have created a huge mess from a financial tax purpose, a tax basis. And now you're disenfranchising poor people more by way of your policies, even through protests and looting. This is unimaginable. Who would have thought that this is where we would be in 2020? But if anybody is really listening and watching what's going on, this should be the best reason not to vote for liberals in any capacity. That's any office, whether it be president, Senate, House, state Senate, state House, mayor, any office. You shouldn't be voting for Democrats. And that's what I've taken away from this time.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I want to share with you Raynor Jackson's comments because this came from the White House, where the president is sort of, in his way, on a listening tour. You know, I know that the rap against Donald Trump is that he doesn't listen to anybody, and that, of course, is a lot of hogwash. He does listen. He ultimately makes decisions based on his gut, on his instincts, on what got him to the White House in the first place. But quite frankly, anybody who's been around him recognizes he does spend a lot of time listening to advisors, listening to people who are willing to bend his ear. So here's Raynor Jackson.
But what I'd like to say to you, Mr. President, is kind of off the beaten path. I'd like to say to all the media assembled here that I wish they would quit lying about what you've done specifically for the black community. So you got radical liberal journalists like Joy Reid from MSNBC, Don Lemon from CNN, Roland Martin, who are putting more poison into the black community than any drug dealer, who are killing more black folks than any white person with a sheet over their face. How are they doing it? Spreading these lies about the economy you had, Mr. President, before the virus was a continuation of Obama. That's just factually not true. I have a degree in accounting. I keep up with the economy. They're lying. So to all these folks on MSNBC, CNN, Roland Martin, what, you're afraid to have real black Republicans who know what the hell they're talking about? If you want to know the truth, if you want us to dissect the Obama economy, let's do it. And I think, Mr. President, your record will win the debate. Thank you.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Yesterday, what was it, hour 3? What was yesterday? Wednesday. It was hour 3 because hour 2 is a male-female hour. So hour 3, I asked people only from Minneapolis to call. And sure enough, all of the lines except one were Minneapolis callers. What your thinking is there? It would be fun if we ever return to normalcy, and I don't know if we will, actually. There's a country might not be at a tipping point. I don't know. The election will determine it. An election for the Democrats is a vote for the Democrats is a vote for chaos. If you can't rise above your disgust with Donald Trump, if that's what you feel, then Donald Trump is not the problem, but your inability to rise above that disgust is the problem. Parties matter more than individuals. Democratic Party is composed of leftists, not liberals, and cowards. Biden is in the second category. He has no convictions. His one conviction his whole life has been, how do I get into elected office? There are people who are Republicans like that. We got disgusted with them. Republicans who stood for nothing except winning a seat. Anyway, I was thinking about if we did return to normalcy, every so often I would just do something like, if you were born in Idaho, call. By the way, I have a funny funny dream, and then I will take your calls here. I read once, I don't know if it's true or if it still happens, where people who all had the same name would have a sort of convention, like a Bob Smith convention. You couldn't have a Dennis Prager convention. There are two of us in the country, to the best of my knowledge. But at Bob Smith, you could have a convention. And I was thinking, if enough of you got PragerU license plates, because now it's catching on since I mentioned it. People are sending me pictures of their cars with a PragerU license plate. So if we got at a certain tipping point, like 30 states, we'd all meet in the middle of the country. That would be a blast. I like those things. All right, by the way, talking about a blast, taking a cruise. I truly believe, I only tell you what I believe. As somebody said to me recently, they said, your name, Dennis, should be Mr. Transparency. And that is true. I am transparent. By the way, I'm an advocate of transparency. I've talked about that on the Happiness Hour. I should revisit it because it's a very important thing. So what I say, people know. I may be wrong, but people know I believe it. I believe that coming on that cruise will actually be good for your immune system. Community. What do they say now? A community and friends prolongs life as much as cigarettes take time off. Anyway, that's just letting you know. So go to my website and find out information. We're going in September. We should be there right now. But it was canceled, obviously. So we're going on a magnificent ship within Europe, starting in Denmark. Oh, and ending up in Normandy, right? Oh, it ends in London, but Normandy on the way. That's a very important part of the cruise. Yes, it's a freedom cruise. Anyway, there's information on my website at cited on the show, and then you click on that and you'll see cruise information. Or just send me an email. All righty, everybody. Colorado Springs, Scott. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Dennis. Thanks for taking this call. A quick question. I have a lot of thoughts on it, but just ask it in the form of question. Do you think that all black colleges are racist, and even more so, all black dormitories, of which there are countless on our colleges and universities in America?
I think the all-black dorms are racist. I don't think all-black colleges are racist. I know it's not fully consistent theoretically, but they play different roles. All-black colleges has a history of truly helping the black community, especially during times when blacks were discriminated against. The history makes the black college a more noble venture. This is new. A black dorm on a campus where there was no impediment to your being accepted because of your color is your desire to separate from the rest, and it can only be unhealthy for you.
And it's gotten worse than that. There's over 80 colleges that have segregated orientations. There's over 125 colleges that have segregated graduations.
That's correct. That's correct.
But you know, the interesting thought. You were stating earlier that seeing color should not matter. I was at a church service this past weekend, and I listened to two separate black couples that were brought up on stage to talk about their black experience, and they were extremely articulate, very warm, very engaging, humorous. I mean, just, kind of people that you'd want to, include in your circle of friends. But one of the women said, "I want you to see my color because that's how you'll know me." Exactly opposite of what you just said. What's my point? My point is, throughout my entire adulthood, I've been given so many mixed signals, messages.
That's right, and
information.
That's right.
It's just too difficult.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have, and that is the last message a church should be advocating. Please see my column this week at Town Hall or my website or wherever else it is. It discusses this. The corruption of religion by the left is another arena of left destruction. I'm sorry, you are as sweet a human as you are. I don't care that you're black. I don't dismiss it, but I do not care. I care if you're good, kind, bright, funny, animated, loyal, honest. How's that? Is that more important, or is black more important?
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. A call is going out now for the dismantling of the Minneapolis Police Department. The president of the city council said this when asked about what to do in the case of a break-in.
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
There's no doubt that our cities and communities need restoration, including greater peaceful engagement between police and citizens. Yet the idea that wanting protection is privilege is not sound. In fact, it's absurd and won't restore anything. Police who act unjustly are accountable to the rule of law and must be. But there is no need to qualify what a society without police will look like. More harm will surely be done. May coming days bring greater safety and meaningful restoration. I'm Owen Strand.
ADF, fighting for those whose religious freedom is being violated. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Mayor Jenny Durkin appeared with Chris Cuomo on CNN and characterized this takeover of a neighborhood in Seattle, where you just heard the police chief characterize people pelting police officers with projectiles, screaming at them, attacking, and ultimately taking it over. But the mayor says these patriots are sort of just having a giant, fun-filled block party.
So I don't have to tell you about the situation on the ground in your city, but in terms of how it looks to the rest of the country and the president teeing it up as basically ineptitude, the inability to control your own streets, is that fair criticism?
So I know it will shock you that the president is perhaps not giving an accurate or truthful picture. We've got 4 blocks in Seattle that you just saw pictures of that is more like a block party atmosphere. It's not an armed takeover. It's not a military junta. We will make sure that we can restore this, but we have block parties and the like in this part of Seattle all the time. It's known for that. So I think the president, number one, there is no threat right now to the public, and we're taking that very seriously. We're meeting with businesses and residents. But what the president threatened is illegal and unconstitutional. And the fact that he can think he can just tweet that and not have ramifications is just wrong.
I don't even know where to begin.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Joined by an old friend, Ralph Reed is the chairman and CEO of Century Strategies. He's been working as an advisor to presidents for as long as I've been behind this microphone. He's an old friend, but he has a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Welcome back. Good to talk to you, friend.
Thanks so much, Hugh. A big fan, regular listener of the show. Great to be with you.
I got to say, Appendix 1. When I'm done with God and Country, I'm just going to tear out Appendix 1 because it's my show every day between now and November. Would you explain to people what you did for everybody?
What we did, Hugh, was we put together a roughly 30-page appendix of all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of President Trump in just the first 3 years of his first term. And, it's not just on the issues that are dear to many Christians of life and religious freedom and originalist and constitutionalist.
It's an amazing thing. The story that the very articulate gentleman, caller, just spoke about is upsetting. Wonderful two black couples at his church, and the woman says, it's important that you see me as black. And it's like the antithesis of everything that the church should be teaching. She should be seen as a creature created in God's image. Talking about creatures created in God's image, one just walked in. Adam Carolla. He doesn't even believe in God, and he's created in God's image. Now, what do you say to that? Am I the only person to introduce you that way?
Yeah. Also, always do. This commonality thing, I don't get it. I'm left-handed, and sometimes people see me autographing something or filling something out with the left hand, and they go, oh, hey, I'm left-handed too, as if we're supposed to hug and then talk about our shared experiences. Yeah, I have to use scissors upside down. I know, it's horrible, isn't it? I feel oppressed. Like, I don't know, this person happens to be left-handed. I happen to be left-handed. That's it. I don't know what's in it for them or for me.
Look, I'm just smiling because we're in such agreement. This notion, then I want to talk to you about your book. When is it published? Is it this week?
It is out, yeah.
Came out on Tuesday. It's already, folks, I follow this stuff. It's fascinating. It is one of the top bestsellers in the United States, including fiction, poetry, self-help, and cookbooks. That is how well it is selling. And it should, by the way. The book is up at DennisPrager.com, incidentally, and it is titled, I'm Your Emotional Support Animal. That is so good. Anyway, obviously...
By the way, my dog, my 110-pound Labrador, Phil, is on the cover of this book. That is my dog that is on my lap, sitting in a plane seat. So, Phil looked like a 110-pound lap. Yeah.
On your lap, no less.
Yeah,
I love that.
It was a tough photo shoot.
Yes.
And I do want to talk about this. Not my book, per se.
Right. Good. I just want to note this notion that, well, if you know I'm black, do you know about me? Because then you know my experience. The whole notion of knowing your experience is to know you is not true. You and I, that's like one of the key selling points of our combined work together, whether it's, appearing in public dialogues or the movie No Safe Spaces that we made. We come from backgrounds that couldn't be more different and still be in the continental United States. Does it matter?
No, obviously, I always say what we have in common is common sense.
Right.
And if you don't believe that's true, think about somebody who is like you. Let's say for me, a white person with Italian heritage who enjoys automobiles. The second I find out that we disagree on something that's fundamental to me, they're out. And you could take a Nigerian-born triathlete, and the second we agree on some of the same principles, they're in.
Right.
That's how everyone is.
Yes. Why isn't that obvious? Okay, so your take on since I last saw you, this country has had convulsions. What's your take?
You know, I always say all roads lead to narcissism. This thing of, you know, I felt the same during the Women's March. You guys are living longer. You're better educated. You get a break on your auto insurance. What is the point? What are we marching for? And what we're marching for is so that I can make a sign and be seen and be heard. We have to fill a void. We don't have problems. We've talked about this a million times. We don't have problems. You and I look at that as a blessing. Good. We can get on with our lives. Many people now need to create a problem to work on. They're sort of like a guy who, your job is to go through the park. You have we have a stick with a nail on the end of it, and you pick up garbage for a living. But what happens one day when there's no more litter in the park? Well, the answer is grab the trash can and empty it and kick the garbage around, and now you can go back out and do your job. That's essentially where we're at as a nation. We're essentially out of real problems. The park is clean, so we have to re-litter the park and create work for ourselves to give ourselves meaning.
It's one of the joys of my life hearing Adam Carolla. His new book, which is hilarious, by the way. I'm getting the Audible edition. Do you read the Audible?
Oh, hell yes.
Oh, hell yes, he said. All right, what is my turn, gentlemen? Riduzone, it is a joy because it's an important product. Riduzone is composed of something your body makes anyway. It's a molecule called OEA. It's the only FDA-accepted product that does include OEA. So you know it's natural. Doctors made this thing. They convinced me with their medical knowledge. It tells you what OEA does normally. You're full, so you will eat less and burn more fat. Go to riduzone.com, riduzone.com. Use the promo code Dennis for up to 65% off.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Is it of importance to us in interpreting the events of the last 2+ weeks that we are seeing all of this happen predominantly in hardcore Democrat-run cities, Gianno?
You know what's interesting about that is that Democrats won't even take credit for the fact that a lot of their policies have caused this to happen. You think about somebody like Joe Biden, who goes into George Floyd funeral with a video message talking about racial reconciliation and healing. Meanwhile, he's a big part of the reason why we have so much division in this country today. You think about the 94 crime bill. If we're going to talk about liberal cities, you can't forget about my hometown of Chicago, where you got a mayor there who provided, or rather asked for, 375 National Guardsmen in the city of Chicago and put them all in the downtown area. Meanwhile, the poor black areas on the south side and west sides are left to fend for themselves. You're talking about minority-owned businesses ruined, which they don't have money to come back. Some of these folks don't even have insurance. And that's across all American spectrums, whether you be white, black, or indifferent. We just lived through COVID. And now you got these liberals whose policies have created a huge mess from a financial tax purpose, a tax basis. And now you're disenfranchising poor people more by way of your policies, even through protests and looting. This is unimaginable. Who would have thought that this is where we would be in 2020? But if anybody is really listening and watching what's going on, this should be the best reason not to vote for liberals in any capacity. That's any office, whether it be president, Senate, House, state Senate, state House, mayor, any office. you shouldn't be voting for Democrats. And that's what I've taken away from this time.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I want to share with you Raynard Jackson's comments because this came from the White House, where the president is sort of, in his way, on a listening tour. You know, I know that the rap against Donald Trump is that he doesn't listen to anybody, and that, of course, is a lot of hogwash. He does listen. He ultimately makes decisions based on his gut, on his instincts, on what got him to the White House in the first place. But quite frankly, anybody who's been around him recognizes he does spend a lot of time listening to advisors,
Perfect. You know what's amazing with all of Dennis Prager? If you ask them, you say, the guy's written that there's a Okay, my friends, Dennis Prager here. We don't even have being lefties in common. When you said that, I realized, oh my God, another barrier to our relationship.
Yeah.
I'm a righty, he's a lefty, and I'm not talking politically.
You can't possibly know the pain of using a dry erase board when you're left-handed. We don't have our shared experience of my fellow lefties who, when you attempt to use a dry erase board, you will smear the very words that you moments ago created as your left hand. Right, it's a right-handed world. Have you a manual stick shift automobile, a circular saw with the blade on the left side so you can't see where you're cutting? Dennis, you don't know our pain, and don't pretend that you can.
I have to confront my guilt.
Yeah.
In this arena.
Alan, are you left-handed? Okay, I need you to leave. You understand? I feel threatened by your right-hand dominance. You understand? You know what it feels like to be under the thumb of your right hand?
There is right-hand privilege.
Yeah.
The
world is built. Again, I struggle with scissors on a daily basis.
Why?
Scissors are right-handed.
They are?
Yes, they have a bigger slot. See, this is my point.
That
you don't even know it.
You're so right.
This is why we have to have an honest dialogue about being left-handed. Because you're so ignorant. You don't even know what you sound like. I stabbed myself in the ear trying to use scissors the other day.
Did you?
Mm-hmm. And Alan laughed.
Alan doesn't laugh. I know you're not telling the truth. See,
that's a good point.
That's not possible. I did make him smile the other day, and I noted it on radio. What did you just say, Sean?
Yeah, left hands matter.
Oh, God.
That's right.
You guys.
I want to take down, there's a statue of Mother Teresa, and I want to take it down because she was famously right-handed. I don't know if you saw that.
Well, there are other reasons. Do you know, who was it who wrote a very big attack on Mother Teresa while she was still living? Anyway, a guy on the left, and who I used to have, even had some respect for him. I used to have him on the show, and then he died of cancer, esophageal. I think Christopher Hitchens wrote an anti-Mother Teresa book. I could see her any statue of her coming. I don't know whose statues would stay up.
And by the way, you notice what you didn't even hear yourself. You just said on the left. Do you know what that sounds like to a left-hander?
Oh,
it's a pejorative. That's hate speech. You see, what I'm saying is you can't even hear yourself. I'm triggered.
Well, who's triggered? Is he triggering
I'm triggered.
me or am I triggering him? Tell everybody the story. You have written, your books are all bestsellers.
Yes.
Okay? That's just a fact, folks, not an opinion. That's very rare to be a best. People use the term, but yours are. Now, so you took a hiatus writing books?
Yes.
What happened with your latest book, the one that just came out?
I'd written 4 books in 5 years. They're all bestsellers. And then I took 5 years off. And at some point, about a year ago, I thought, well, now I've recharged my batteries. I have another book in my head, and I want to kind of come out and do it in the vein of my first book, In 50 Years We'll All Be Chicks, which was a big seller. And so I called my literary agent in New York, and I said, hey, announce to some prospective buyers, publishers, that Adam Carolla is ready to write another book, and maybe we'll get a little bidding war going. I see, let the best man win. And I also had a first look deal with my former publisher as well. I put the word out to my agent. He got back to me about a week later, said he went out to all the major companies, and it was a hard pass. It wasn't, he sent me their responses, just literally not interested. They didn't even talk price or what are we talking about here? They didn't ask questions. They just said, nah, no thanks. We're done. So I thought, really? Is that where we're at now? I mean, I'm the same person I was 10 years ago. Obviously, the publishing world is changed quite a bit. And I found a publisher called Post Hill. They're independent, and I wrote the book with them, and now they're making the money.
Good.
And it's important, though, that your listeners understand and support people like us who are out saying things that aren't popular, and we're trying to be sort of defunded by these people. I mean, these people would like us to lose our livelihoods if they could. They can't because of the people who buy the book.
You know, this has never happened in American history.
It's sad.
This is unprecedented.
This is a book, by the way. Where else can you put your opinions down other than a book?
That's why I call this a secular religion. They are prepared to suffer for their religion, as other religious people are. It used to be all that mattered was green, which is the way it should be. A business operates to make money. They now operate to advocate left-wing positions.
And they probably think, if you're Nike or whomever, it'll help the bottom line, even if you crack a few eggs to make the omelet, as you always say. So if you burn a couple Adam Carollas, maybe we'll get Michelle Obama's second book and we'll make a little more money. So I don't think it's all about turning your back on profit. If you think about a lot of this virtue signaling that's going on, I mean, I always use the examples in the book. Subarus make off-road vehicles. They're now made with love. Subaru makes their cars with love. They used to talk about making them with galvanized steel. Now they're talking about making them with love. But Subaru, as a company, also makes attack helicopters for the Japanese military.
But they're made with love, too.
I'm not sure if the attack helicopters are made with love. Or maybe the helicopters are, but the Hellfire missiles aren't made
back
with
in
love.
A moment with Adam Carolla.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Heard somebody the other day say, Drew Brees made a gutsy statement in favor of the flag, the American flag. Really? And I said to myself, well, that's Drew Brees. He's always been a class act. And he doesn't agree with this kneeling and said so. Now, why that is some sort of great act of courage says a whole lot about where we are in our society. And then something else happened. You know what that something else is? He apologized. I should have known more. I didn't realize. Have a much greater understanding now. What is going on? This is the opposite of the racism that the people seem to think exists in this country. Zero tolerance. I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. Let me just tell you what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and when I look at the flag of the United States. End of quote. That's how I feel. I'm supposed to apologize for that? Did he make demands that his teammates not kneel? No. Did he call out any of his teammates for kneeling by name? No. I disagree with it, and therefore I've got to apologize.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Exclusive from General Flynn. This is at westernjournal.com. Freedom is oxygen, like the air we breathe that keeps our lungs full and our hearts beating. The celestial feeling of freedom brings a sense of peace to our souls. Freedom must never be taken for granted. Securing our freedom demands a high price, and that price requires hard work and sacrifice. Both will bind us all by the value they produce, but only if we are willing to seek new opportunities and new ideas. Those who have sacrificed the most, those who have given the last true measure of devotion that derives from the love of faith, family, and the cause of freedom, for all of us to be free and for the betterment of our republic and the free world, cannot be allowed to have died in vain. Theirs is the ultimate sacrifice, and heaven
Blob theme song?
Yeah, earlier today.
Oh, okay.
I do
twice
other
in one day.
I do other radio shows. It's not.
You
know,
do?
we're not exclusive.
You know, that hurts.
We're dating, but we're not exclusive.
That's the way it should be. That's the new thing. That I was just reading about that. In fact, it's called cushion dating. So that you might be serious with person X, but you have a cushion of persons Y, Z, A, and B as your emotional support should that not go right.
Wow. Yeah.
Cushion dating. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. I guess I guess it's like your emergency school or your second choice school when you're applying for colleges, right?
Right.
You have that in dating. Like, I'm applying to Stanford,
right,
but I got CSUN in case things go wrong.
Right. But in this case, it's more than that. You're taking courses at CSUN in case you flunk out of Stanford.
Really?
Yeah. So it's more than just I've applied.
I never went to college. I never applied for college.
It's that's one of the things I believe you should be thankful for.
Well, you learn a lot on a construction site. You really learn everything you need to know on a construction site. It's all there. And when you go through that and you see how that works physically, it's helpful. It gives you a sort of clarity.
Let me ask you a question. I just want to say to the public, he has two really wonderful children. They are kind, mature, well-mannered. They're really wonderful kids. Are they being affected? Forget the COVID lockdown. Are they being affected by the rioting and the turbulence?
Well, they're being affected. They're not being affected by what's going on in the streets, but they're definitely being affected by the political climate. They graduated the 8th grade. They have to put their statement, a song lyric or a cliche or string some words together under their picture. My son is a little bit of a rebel. And he announced at the table he was going to put "Make America Great Again" under his picture. My daughter said, "No, you're not, because you won't be able to show up at school on the 9th grade. I don't want to be chased around with a stick for my entire high school career." Oh, God. Think about that.
You're doing such a good job. Folks, he's terrific. Watch us in No Safe Spaces and get his book. I'm Your Emotional Support Animal. Adam Carolla, even though you're a lefty, we have a lot in common.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. A call is going out now for the dismantling of the Minneapolis Police Department. The president of the city council said this when asked about what to do in the case of a break-in.
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
There's no doubt that our cities and communities need restoration, including greater peaceful engagement between police and citizens. Yet the idea that wanting protection is privilege is not sound. In fact, it's absurd and won't restore anything. Police who act unjustly are accountable to the rule of law and must be. But there is no need to qualify what a society without police will look like. More harm will surely be done. May coming days bring greater safety and meaningful restoration. I'm Owen Strand.
ADF, fighting for those whose religious freedom is being violated. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Mayor Jenny Durkan appeared with Chris Cuomo on CNN and characterized this takeover of a neighborhood in Seattle, where you just heard the police chief characterize people pelting police officers with projectiles, screaming at them, attacking, and ultimately taking it over. But the mayor says these patriots are sort of just having a giant, fun-filled block party.
So I don't have to tell you about the situation on the ground in your city, but in terms of how it looks to the rest of the country and the president teeing it up as basically ineptitude, the inability to control your own streets. Is that fair criticism?
So I know it will shock you that the president is perhaps not giving an accurate or truthful picture. We've got 4 blocks in Seattle that you just saw pictures of that is more like a block party atmosphere. It's not an armed takeover. It's not a military junta. We will make sure that we can restore this, but we have block parties and the like in this part of Seattle all the time. It's known for that. So I think the president, number one, there is no threat right now to the public, and we're taking that very seriously. We're meeting with businesses and residents. But what the president threatened is illegal and unconstitutional. And the fact that he can think he can just tweet that and not have ramifications is just wrong.
I don't even know where to begin.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Joined by an old friend, Ralph Reed is the chairman and CEO of Century Strategies. He's been working as an advisor to presidents for as long as I've been behind this microphone. He's an old friend, but he has a new book, For God and Country, The Christian Case for Trump. Welcome back. Good to talk to you, friend.
Thanks so much, Hugh. A big fan, regular listener of the show. Great to be with you.
I got to say, Appendix 1. When I'm done with God and Country, I'm just going to tear out Appendix 1 because it's my show every day between now and November. Would you explain to people what you did for everybody?
What we did, Hugh, was we put together a roughly 30-page appendix of all of the incredible accomplishments and achievements of President Trump in just the first 3 years of his first term. And, it's not just on the issues that are dear to many Christians of life and religious freedom and originalists and constitutionalists on the courts and Israel, but it's really all the issues, including jobs and the economy and the budget and so forth. And it's updated regularly, by the way, on the Faith and Freedom website. So the reason why it was important for me to put that in there, Hugh, is because in 2016, when Trump promised us he would do these things, Christians were told that we were gullible for believing him. And we've now been vindicated for, on faith, let's be honest, we weren't sure he'd deliver. He'd never held an elective office. He didn't have a record as an elected official. But we didn't have much of a choice because behind door number 2 was Hillary.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. America has been doing some soul searching lately. Perhaps you noticed. We're examining what's right with America and what can be made better. No other country does this kind of introspection better than us. Some of what we found we don't like and will change. Every life has the right to be treated with dignity and respect. That includes our law enforcement as well as every skin color. We've been through this before in America, and we always came out stronger. We will this time too. Our hosts will make sure of that. We are the answer. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Heard somebody the other day say, Drew Brees made a gutsy statement in favor of the flag, the American flag. Really? And I said to myself, well, that's Drew Brees. He's always been a class act. And he doesn't agree with this kneeling, and said so. Now, why that is some sort of great act of courage says a whole lot about where we are in our society. And then something else happened. You know what that something else is? He apologized. I should have known more. I didn't realize. Have a much greater understanding now. What is going on? This is the opposite of the racism that the people seem to think exists in this country. Zero tolerance. I will never agree with anybody disrespecting the flag of the United States of America or our country. Let me just tell you what I see or what I feel when the national anthem is played and when I look at the flag of the United States. End of quote. That's how I feel. I'm supposed to apologize for that?
And you are who you are. And now we go to another wonderful guest. These shows, the 3 hours every day go so fast, which is a very good sign, as I always say. Imagine if you're a talk show host and you think that 3 hours, oh my God, felt like 7. It's not a good sign. You do look for other work. Well, I asked to have this woman on because I so admire her writing and her guts. And my favorite trait is courage. She has it. Julie Kelly of American Greatness, a fantastic website. I'm honored to be published there myself. And she has a book about a group of people that presents fascinating moral and intellectual challenges to those of us who think clearly. Disloyal Opposition, how the Never Trump Right, and the Never Trump Right, tried and failed to take down the president. Brief, solid, powerful book. It is up at DennisPrager.com. Julie Kelly, welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
Thank you so much for having me. What a kind introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome. Where are you locked down right now, or semi-down?
I am locked down in the suburbs of Chicago.
Oh, so you really are locked down.
Well, we're gradually getting some of our freedom back. But it's going to be a long haul, I think, before they try to do it again in the fall. So
I wonder, there's a big left-right divide on the lockdown, which is obvious because look at the left-wing governors, how they treat their states, and Republican governors, how they treat their states. But I wonder, since this is what your book is about, do you think the Republican never-Trumpers are more pro-lockdown or anti-lockdown?
They are definitely pro-lockdown because, number one, it enables them really to target some of the Republican governors who have fought this trend, such as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. But also, Dennis, it's part of their plan to have a completely absentee voting election in November. If people get their freedom back, they start to see all of the bad science that we listened to, how this was so counterproductive. They lose their crusade to do absentee vote, mail-in voting in November, and keep Joe Biden in the basement at the same time. So it's in their best political interest, the never-Trumpers, to keep the lockdown campaign going.
So maybe you... well, not maybe. I want to hear your theory because I need you to know, that's why you hear the hesitation in my voice. I know 95% of the major never-Trumpers. I personally know them. Mm-hmm. Almost all of them have made videos for PragerU at some time. And I have to tell you, it's painful. And some are beyond the pale. I mean, when Max Boot, who at one time was the opinion page editor of the Wall Street Journal, I know that because he published me so often, and that he declared the week that, or the month that Donald Trump was elected, he wrote, "Donald Trump is Stalin. A man whose parents came from the Soviet Union, escaped from the Soviet Union." And I must admit that to this moment, Julie, I do not understand them. How do you explain them?
Well, Dennis, I think my book is intended to give a voice to what you just said, and that's why I call it disloyal opposition. These are people, I don't know them personally like you do, but they're certainly people who I once respected, who I once trusted. This would be Bill Kristol. I mean, I grew up basically listening to Bill Kristol and the neoconservatives and trusting what they were saying. And so this book really details how not only they betrayed people like us, the Republican Party that was their gravy train for decades, but they really have pivoted on every position that they once had. You know, they're pro-climate change. They're some of them now advocate abolishing the Second Amendment. They're pro-open borders. So they're not even anything resembling conservative anymore. So this is their shtick, right? So they pretend that there is this dissent within the Republican Party or conservative movement, people who are on the right who oppose the president, which, of course, is not the case. And so this is how they make their living now. And I also detail in my book how a lot of them, including Bill Kristol, are funded millions of dollars in funding by a left-wing tech billionaire.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Tell me.
So Piero Midyar is the founder of eBay. He is a virulent anti-Trumper. He formulated a Never Trump PAC in 2016. But he's a left-winger, so he's in the same group as most tech billionaires. They're very leftist, and they want to quell conservative voices. He has donated millions of dollars to these new nonprofits that you see popping up. Bill Kristol is one of them. So if you see this Republicans for the Rule of Law, it has received millions of dollars from Piero Midyar. Other groups include Evan McMullen and Mindy Finn's groups, the Niskanen Center, which is a climate activist group that pretends to be center-right, which they're not. So I go through all the list of Never Trumpers who, the Bulwark is one of the projects. The Bulwark is kind of the offshoot of the Weekly Standard. After the Weekly Standard was shuttered the end of 2018, the Bulwark was formed. So you know who these people are: Charlie Sykes, Jim Swift, the kind of Weekly Standard rejects went to the Bulwark. They are receiving money from Pierre Omidyar as well. So it's not even that these so-called Never Trump conservatives are funded by disgruntled conservatives. They are funded by leftists so they can portray that there's this conservative discontent with Donald Trump when it really doesn't exist.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know more about this than I do, so this is a real education for me. How many people read The Bulwark?
That is a good question. I would, they play this role as a foil. So they are retweeted by people like Jake Tapper. They're retweeted at people at The Atlantic and Politico. So they really play also, one of the chapters in my book is entitled Useful Idiot. They are the useful idiot for the left. Now, what'll be interesting, Dennis, is what their usefulness is in the next Trump era, whether Trump wins or loses. If he loses, they're of no use to the left anymore. And you already see some of the leftists and the Democrats say, well, we'll use you to the extent that it helps our narrative, but we don't want your input in any Democratic administration or any Democratic power structure. You're only to stay here, write your columns, go on MSNBC and CNN, and spew this Trump hate, pretending that it comes from Republicans. And we already see, Dennis, some of these new groups are popping up again, Republicans for Joe Biden. There was another PAC that was formulated by Anthony Scaramucci. So they're trying the same thing that they played in 2016, 2018, and they're re-upping it for 2020.
Who was Bill Kristol's right hand at the Weekly Standard? What was his name again?
Stephen Hayes.
No, that's true. He was his right hand. Then I'm thinking of sort of the co-editor. Fred Barnes. Fred Barnes.
Okay.
Yeah. What happened to Fred Barnes?
I don't know where Fred Barnes is. I don't discuss him in my book, but Stephen Hayes, as you know, went with Jonah Goldberg, and Jonah Goldberg left National Review. Stephen Hayes, they formed this new newsletter, really is what it is, called The Dispatch.
And who's funding that?
I'm not sure. We're trying to find out who's funding that, but you have to subscribe to the Dispatch. So you can't get their newsletter content without subscribing to it. So that's partially where they're getting their money. But David French, who left National Review, he is with the Dispatch also, and they are really, I think in a way, even more disappointing, because I know there are a lot of your listeners who follow Jonah Goldberg, bought his books, trusted him as a true conservative, and all he does, if he's on Fox News or writes from the Dispatch, they blast not just the president, but Republicans who support the president, Republican lawmakers, governors, and, of course, Trump supporters in a really demeaning way.
All right, let me remind everybody, the book explaining the Never Trumpers, Disloyal Opposition, Julie Kelly, up at DennisPrager.com.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
For folks like you and me, this was a moment ago, especially for you. You lived through this. You were an adult. This was your friend. This was a student. And the parallels with what are happening in this country today are so striking. I mean, we could have talked about this book just because it's the 50th anniversary and it's a good book and it's interesting. And, you and I have met. But I mean, the parallels to what is happening right now in this country are just crazy similar. And so I do want to talk about that. Now, look, there's a lot of young people listening to this program who don't have a clue what was going on around that time. So frame it for us. In this novel, Hippies, which is based on real life events, obviously, you just told us 2 of your friends were killed. Students were killed. I mean, I still can't get my head around this.
All right. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. So frame it for people who don't know anything about Kent State or whatever.
Right. Well, back then in 1969, 1970, it was all about the Vietnam War, and the attitude of the country was changing. Like our best baby boomers, when we were going off, we're graduating. Like when I was graduating from high school in '67, you were expected to go to Vietnam and defend the country, like our parents did, the World War II generation, and we were all for it. But then people started realizing this war was not a good war. There was no sense to it. That kids were getting killed at the same rate as World War II, and nothing was happening. I mean, Vietnam was no threat to the United States like the Germans with their A-bombs and their iron. Vietnam didn't even have a Navy or an Air Force or anything, And my friends were coming back. They went to Vietnam, and they came back and telling horror stories. And so the whole mood of the country was changing. So the students started protesting.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Is it of importance to us in interpreting the events of the last 2+ weeks that we are seeing all of this happen predominantly in hardcore Democrat-run cities, Gianna?
You know what's interesting about that is that Democrats won't even take credit for the fact that a lot of their policies have caused this to happen. You think about somebody like Joe Biden, who goes into George Floyd funeral with a video message talking about racial reconciliation and healing. Meanwhile, he's a big part of the reason why we have so much division in this country today. You think about the 94 crime bill. If we're going to talk about liberal cities, you can't forget about my hometown of Chicago, where you got a mayor there who provided, or rather asked for, 375 National Guardsmen in the city of Chicago and put them all in the downtown area. Meanwhile, the poor black areas on the south side and west sides are left to fend for themselves. You're talking about minority-owned businesses ruined, which they don't have money to come back. Some of these folks don't even have insurance. And that's across all American spectrums, whether you be white, black, or indifferent. We just lived through COVID. And now you got these liberals whose policies have created a huge mess from a financial tax purpose, a tax basis. And now you're disenfranchising poor people more by way of your policies, even through protests and looting. This is unimaginable. Who would have thought that this is where we would be in 2020? But if anybody is really listening and watching what's going on, this should be the best reason not to vote for liberals in any capacity. That's any office, whether it be president, Senate, House, state Senate, state House, mayor, any office. You shouldn't be voting for Democrats. And that's what I've taken away from this time.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
PragerU's Will Witt poses a fascinating question. What if the left and right got everything each wanted? What would the country look like under those two different visions? Find out at PragerU.com, where we teach what isn't taught. Okay, everybody. Julie Kelly, American Greatness, which is a great website. Disloyal opposition, how the never Trump right tried and failed to take down the president. Julie, I spent a lot of my time thinking about a question, and the question is always why. I've told my listeners that if I were on a sinking ship, I wouldn't ask where the lifeboats were first. I'd ask, why are we sinking? Which is not a compliment to me. That's just how my mind works. I need to understand, and then I could live with what I understand. To this moment, I am the never Trumpers that you mentioned, I find hard to explain. And when I have talked to them, in fact, Brett Stevens and I have had a public he wrote a column about me in the Times. I wrote a column about him in my syndicated column. It was both respectful, and I the only thing I could conclude to this day is that the biggest single difference between us is that I perceive the left as a mortal threat to the country, and they do not.
I think that that's absolutely true. And I think, Dennis, in a way, we could see that playing out just over the last few weeks.
Yes.
You know, and look, I wrote a column for American Greatness about that this week.
I read it.
There are people like Jonah Goldberg and others who are blaming Donald Trump for
Ross
the failure
Douthat, you point out. Yeah. Right. Go on.
Right. And so, but who was in charge of the conservative movement for 30 years? You guys were. And if there's any blame to be taken right now for the fact that conservatives, for the most part, feel defeated and are unarmed to take on the left, it is their fault. You know, you have Rich Lowry today on Politico posted an editorial, a column about how we conservatives should not reject this, you know, displacement, obliteration of Confederate statues. Well, okay, but we see where the slippery slope is going. They're already taking down and ruining and destroying Thomas Jefferson statues. This is where it's going. And to this day, they still either they don't see it or, quite frankly, they're just too weak and cowardly to figure out a way to fight back.
How is Max Boot in your book?
He is.
How does a man whose parents escaped the Soviet Union call Donald Trump Stalin?
Right. He wrote another column after that saying because he was a refugee of communism, now under Trump, who apparently is such a totalitarian, authoritarian, whatever word he wants to use, he feels like a stranger in his own country.
Yeah. But he doesn't feel a stranger on MSNBC.
Well, that's their gig, right? So him and Jennifer Rubin, and I have a whole list of them in my book. They're editors at the Washington Examiner who feel the same way, and they are still giving comfort to the left, even as we see the dismantling of what people are understandably, justifiably alarmed at what is happening. And while the neocons and these never-Trumpers were worried about nation building in the Middle East, guess what? They ignored and neglected what was happening in our own country. The left got a stranglehold in every institution, and now they want to blame Donald Trump for that. It's absurd.
You write at the end of the book that on your deathbed, you will look back at your years as a full-time mom as your happiest. Is that correct?
It is. You just put a big smile on my face, yes.
This is another massive issue. This has nothing to do directly with your book, but because you wrote that, I have a thought I'd like to bounce off you. All of a sudden, after a few years of looking at photos of demonstrators, the thought occurred to me, angry, screaming demonstrators, the thought occurred to me that there seems to be, and I've now almost made a collection of it, a disproportionate number of young women screaming and angry. Mm-hmm. And where it hit me first in my movie, No Safe Spaces, where at Yale, these two professors, because the wife said that it doesn't really matter what your Halloween costume is. It's not a big deal. That was all she said. So she was called a racist. And they were surrounded, the two professors, and screamed at, mostly by young women. And then I thought, I think I've seen that before. Do you have any thoughts on that, or am I just, finding what I'm looking for?
No, I will say I have a daughter who's going to be a junior in college at a very liberal private college in upstate New York. People could probably figure out what it is. And she is she's on our side. She's on the right. She's conservative. She supports Donald Trump. And the young women she is friends with and sorority sisters with are in a perpetual state of rage, of outrage, of anger. And it's just not the same with her friends who are young men. There's such a huge political gap between the two right now, I think, for that upcoming generation. But you're right. I don't know why these women are so angry. Well, they've been told to be angry, right?
Right. They have told to, yes. But the men have been told to be angry too. But, of course, the men have less theoretically to be angry about because the country's misogynist and men have male privilege. So but I always think there might be another reason. The things that gave young women a lot of meaning in life have been debunked. Like what you said, gave you your greatest happiness.
That's right.
Your family. Anyway,
right.
You're a joy to talk to. We'll do it again. The book is Disloyal Opposition. It's about the Never Trumpers, folks. It's up at DennisPrager.com. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
I want to share with you Raynor Jackson's comments because this came from the White House where the president is sort of, in his way, on a listening tour. I know that the rap against Donald Trump is that he doesn't listen to anybody. And that, of course, is a lot of hogwash. He does listen. He ultimately makes decisions based on his gut, on his instincts, on what got him to the White House in the first place. But quite frankly, anybody who's been around him recognizes he does spend a lot of time listening to advisors, listening to people who are willing to bend his ear. So here's Raynor Jackson.
Well, what I'd like to say to you, Mr. President, is kind of off the beaten path. I'd like to say to all the media assembled here that I wish they would quit lying about what you've done specifically for the black community. So you got radical liberal journalists like Joy Reid from MSNBC, Don Lemon from CNN, Roland Martin, who are putting more poison into the black community than any drug dealer, who are killing more black folks than any white person with a sheet over their face. How are they doing it? Spreading these lies about the economy you had, Mr. President, before the virus was a continuation of Obama. That's just factually not true. I have a degree in accounting. I keep up with the economy. They're lying. So to all these folks on MSNBC, CNN, Roland Martin, what, you're afraid to have real black Republicans who know what the hell they're talking about? If you want to know the truth, if you want us to dissect the Obama economy, let's do it. And I think, Mr. President, your record will win the debate. Thank you.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Attention business owners. As America gets back to work, will customers know you're there? With little warning, the coronavirus attacked our nation and our well-being in ways we never anticipated. The tragic loss of life, unprecedented economic upheaval, and a shattered sense of security has left many individuals and businesses in shambles. While the aftershocks could be felt for months to come, they may not have to. There is hope for an extraordinary turnaround of your bottom line. But will you be prepared for America's grand reopening? All signs point to the biggest business opportunity of our lifetime, coming as early as this summer. A recent survey of local advertisers shows a 10-point jump in the number of local advertisers who plan to maintain or increase their spending. 1 in 4 businesses expect to spend more in advertising by the end of June, and more than half expect to restart or surge their spending by this summer. As the numbers forecast increased spending from advertisers across the country, will your message be seen and heard? Will your business benefit from the pent-up consumer demand? Salem Surround is prepared to help you deliver the right advertising message to reach all potential customers wherever they are. Your business can be ready for a post-COVID-19 economy, but the time to act is now. Be at the front of the line as our economy begins to fire on all cylinders once again. For a free assessment of your marketing message and strategy, visit salemsurround.com or contact your local media strategist today.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
If you actually care about Black lives, you have an obligation to distance yourself from Black Lives Matter, the organization, the hashtag movement, whatever it is. I want to get that out up front. But Horace, how have you been processing this?
So,
hey everybody, Dennis Prager here. I will be repeating this regularly because I believe this is one of the great moral weaknesses of the left on the issue of race, whether it's the Black Lives Matter group or the white privilege group or the white fragility crowd. The notion, the backwards, upside down reversal of all liberal teaching of the last 50 years, 100 years, that it's the content of a man's character, not his race, that matters. And they say it's the race that matters. It's another phone call I can't get out of my mind is the one that I got the last hour or the first hour from a man who said that in his church 2 black couples were called up and, everything about them was just delightful. And then she said, but, it's important that you see, when you look at me, that you see a black person. Why? Why isn't it important that I see a person who happens to be black? I see a person who happens to be a woman. I see a person who happens to be, and then fill in any other identity that you see. I just keep using this example because I think it's perfectly apt. I am, as you know, I'm a very committed Jew, but when people see me, they see Dennis. I don't expect you to see, oh, there's a Jew. That is the greatness of America, that we saw you. That's the melting pot ideal. The left is destroying, they loathe the melting pot ideal. It's a quilt, said that giant Jesse Jackson. It's a quilt. Did you see the Thomas Friedman piece? He wants to change it for e pluribus unum. I said they made war on the American Trinity. He has a perfect example. He doesn't like from many one. He wants to change it from many to many we, from many we. See, I told you. Because I have a happy life, I have lived with the knowledge all of my life that I am telling people truths and that a lot of people reject them. Or even if they agree with me, don't take them entirely seriously. So when I have said the left wants to undo the American Revolution, people undoubtedly, in most cases, thought it's hyperbole. Now, when they tear down the statues of Washington and Jefferson, rename schools named after Washington and Jefferson, make war on In God We Trust, make war on liberty, make war on E Pluribus Unum, the three components of the American Trinity, now do you believe me? They want to fundamentally transform America. They don't hide it. There's something in you that is so either naive or just weak. It's a moral flaw to deny the transformative nature of the left. There's something wrong with the perceiver. The country is being destroyed, and you aren't sure about it. I know a talk show host is not supposed to insult his audience. And I'm not insulting my audience, but I am insulting some members of it. I acknowledge that, but I don't get off on insulting people, as you know. I want to shock you into realization before it's too late. America is being destroyed by the left. What will it take for them to say or do until you acknowledge that? The preoccupation with Donald Trump, the preoccupation with anti-racism is a veneer, it's a facade, it's a smokescreen for their destruction. That's all it is. All it is. Anti-racism is as useful to them as anti-fascism was to the communists. That's all it is. May I please have that? Thank you. What did you just say? A relief factor, ladies and gentlemen, and then I will take your calls. Relief factor. Easiest product to endorse? The only question is, how do I convince you to try it for 3 weeks? Do you have $19.95 in shipping? Probably. If you don't, there's nothing I could say. But if you do, that's all it costs to try it for 3 weeks. And Relief Factor says if it doesn't work in those 3 weeks, by golly, it's not going to work. But it might. And then you will join a very large number of Americans in thanking me and other sponsors of Relief Factor. 800-580-384, 3-week trial pack, relieffactor.com.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. A call is going out now for the dismantling of the Minneapolis Police Department. The president of the city council said this when asked about what to do in the case of a break-in.
Yes, I mean, I hear that loud and clear from a lot of my neighbors. And I know, and myself too, and I know that that comes from a place of privilege, because for those of us for whom the system is working, I think we need to step back and imagine what it would feel like to already live in that reality, where calling the police may mean more harm is done.
There's no doubt that our cities and communities need restoration, including greater peaceful engagement between police and citizens. Yet the idea that wanting protection is privilege is not sound. In fact, it's absurd and won't restore anything. Police who act unjustly are accountable to the rule of law and must be. But there is no need to qualify what a society without police will look like. More harm will surely be done. May coming days bring greater safety and meaningful restoration. I'm Owen Strand.
ADF, fighting for those whose religious freedom is being violated. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Mayor Jenny Durkan appeared with Chris Cuomo on CNN and characterized this takeover of a neighborhood in Seattle, where you just heard the police chief characterize people pelting police officers with projectiles, screaming at them, attacking, and ultimately taking it over. But the mayor says these patriots are sort of just having a giant, fun-filled block party.
So I don't have to tell you about the situation on the ground in your city, but in terms of how it looks to the rest of the country and the president teeing it up as basically ineptitude, the inability to control your own streets, is that fair criticism?
So I know it will shock you that the president is perhaps not giving an accurate or truthful picture. We've got 4 blocks in Seattle that you just saw pictures of that is more like a block party atmosphere. It's not an armed takeover. It's not a military junta. We will make sure that we can restore this, but we have block parties and the like in this part of Seattle all the time. It's known for that. So I think the president, number one, there is no threat right now to the public, and we're taking that very seriously. We're meeting with businesses and residents. But what the president threatened is illegal and unconstitutional. And the fact that he can think he can just tweet that and not have ramifications is just wrong.
I don't even know where to begin.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Okay, everybody. Let me go to your calls here. They're all good, which is always a problem. JR in Columbus, Ohio. Hello.
Hello, Dennis. And just for the record, I don't think of you as being Jewish. I think of you as being Dennis. So that's every day.
Right.
But,
that's my point. Exactly. I mean, it's obviously an important part of me, but so what? The whole American dream is to see you as JR, me as Dennis, Alan as Alan, Sean as Sean, not Sean the white man, not Larry the black man, not so and so the Episcopalian. That was the dream. It was successful until the left. Yeah. I mean, it's very hard to achieve, but we were getting there, and the left has ruined it.
Agreed. Okay, so here's my thought. I think I have a piece of the puzzle. Every woman that I know that has gone to college, especially in the Ivy League colleges, seems to come out of it enraged. Not all of them, but a disproportionate amount. Mm-hmm. My cousin is a perfect example. And she is 56 years old, and I can still remember when she was in her mid-20s talking about how this country was racist and all this. And, I was 7 years younger than her. Well, that's not true. Sorry, I'm doing the math wrong. But anyway, I remember looking at her going, what are you talking about? I mean, I just.
So why? All right. So why do women buy this more than men?
Okay. So here's my theory. Men intuitively are not easily susceptible to becoming victims. They just aren't. And I think women are. Now, if that's chauvinistic, then I apologize. But I see it. I see it even in my own community. The young men, young boys around my community, oh my God, they think all this stuff is just stupid. Whereas we had a Black Lives Matter march go right down our street 3 weeks ago. I am not exaggerating. It had to be 70% white young women.
That's all right. I'm letting you go because that was the key to everything. See, this is my hunch. People, you should take pictures of the protests. The violence is, I think, committed more by men. Although the case of the Wendy's that went on fire in Atlanta, that was apparently done by a woman. So I'm pretty sure I'm right that the average young woman is unhappier, especially if she's at college. She's unhappier and angrier than the average young man. And the answer will be that she's a victim of the widespread misogyny, the the systemic sexism of the culture. You want to make a person into a bad human being and an unhappy human being? Just convince them that they are victims. That's the key. All right. And let's go another JR. I'm only taking calls from JRs today. Westminster, South Carolina. Hi.
Mr. Prager, pleasure as always. It's been a while, but I think I mentioned to your screener, as an African American, and I'm not a teenager. There is no such thing as racism, and I mentioned, biblically, even academically, you have ethnics, you have nationalities, you have culture, but there is only one race. That's the human race. As far back as you can trace it, mankind has one origin. But of course, this is a tool that is used for many, many purposes. But in this case, in this nation, it's used to divide. It is used to cause chaos, and because people are not educated.
When did you come to these realizations?
All right, I'm 65. I was born in I'm born in the mid 50s, and I grew up in an integrated neighborhood. My preschool was at the Jewish Community Center. I went to an integrated school. My whole life has been in integration. So, 63, 64 years ago? And that was the norm. Conservatism, and grew up in a Christian household. So that, for African Americans in my day, that was the norm. Two parents growing up in a household, nobody on government assistance, the whole 9 yards.
And Christian.
Oh, definitely.
That's right. Definitely. That's very important. Thank you, sir. Do you know where I see, I've said this, do you know where I see, and it's a perception, I can't prove it, but where I see the most natural relations of blacks and whites with zero interest in color, zero, is when I speak, as I often do, to groups of Christian clergy around the country, and there are many black pastors at these conferences. And I see the easygoing hugging that takes place, and the reason is they have something higher that bonds them. Obviously, their faith. My life has been about the devastating consequences of secularism. You've been seeing them the last few weeks in the United States of America.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
What do you make of what's going on in our streets, these protests, these riots?
Well, unfortunately, the things that were done to that poor individual, Mr. Floyd, are things that should not be done to an animal. Mm-hmm. And that's enough to enrage anyone. So I understand the rage. But unfortunately, there are others who are hiding behind peaceful protesters who are not peaceful people at all. And I think that dishonors the man who died. It also dishonors Dr. Martin Luther King, who was an advocate for nonviolent protests and was able to bring about the greatest civic changes ever in this country. And I don't know of any situation where violent, destructive protests have been helpful.
Dr. Carson, even Mr. Floyd's brother has made a statement and has said that my brother would not have been happy about this. And before George Floyd died, Dr. Carson, he had a Facebook post where he was talking about black-on-black crime and how he thought how hideous he thought it was, and that we need to get our arms around that.
And the black community really needs to start talking about that issue, because how many young black men are killed every weekend in Chicago, but because it's black on black crime, we don't care about that.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
This is the state of play. And what is the response from the left? Mr. Mayor, please listen to Governor Jay Inslee of Washington State, where some of the worst violence is occurring, on his responsibility or lack thereof to the people of his state.
Thing called the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. What's your thought on that? The fact that the protesters have taken that over and not allowing people to come and go freely? Regarding the National Guard.
Well, that's news to me, so I'll have to reserve any comment about it. I have not heard anything about that from any credible source. Not that you're not credible. It's just like before I espouse an opinion, I should know of which I speak.
Should a governor be laughing about losing control of the streets of one of his cities, Mr. Matt?
I'm not surprised, Sebastian. Are you?
I'm not, but what does this mean for the people living in Seattle in Washington State?
Well, I hope that the American people can observe all this and they can see there's no coincidence that the worst riots
All right, everybody, let me get as many as I can in here. Don't hang up, and please be concise. Dennis Prager here, Don in Sarasota, Florida. Hello.
Hi, my name is Don, and, I have the most respect for you, Dennis, but I do not agree with your statement that you are basically colorblind. When I see a black person, I see a black person. If I see a white person, I see a white person, and I don't see a problem with that.
Well, if you see a person wearing a blue tie, you see a blue tie. If you see a person wearing a black tie, you see a black tie. The question is, does it matter? That's what colorblind means. It doesn't mean you cannot see.
No, it does not matter. But
okay, if it does not matter, then you're colorblind. No, that's what colorblind means. Yes, that's what it means. Just like a tie color, you see tie colors, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, I will agree with you there.
Okay, then I got to leave it. Only I would love to continue. I just want to make that. That's what colorblind doesn't mean. You're blind. It means color doesn't matter. Of course, you see the color of a person. As I said, you see the color of their shirt. But it doesn't matter. Unless you saw my shirt right now, my wife picked out, and I don't particularly like. But that's a separate issue. It's so separate that it doesn't matter. Dwayne in Vancouver, Washington. Hello.
Hello, Dennis.
Hi.
I was fascinated by your guest regarding the Never Trumpers. That's been fascinating to me. I think they've done more damage to Trump than anybody else. And I think the theory that I have
done more damage to the fight against the left than anybody else. Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. I think at the very beginning when he was elected, I predicted what I called the Mo Howard effect, that there would be those that would be so shaken by their sensibilities of him being elected that they could not accept their emotional narcissism would not allow them to permit him to be a functioning president. That's why they can go on MSNBC and feel comfortable, because their inner narcissistic emotionalism can be nurtured there.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're wrong, but I have no doubt that it is overwhelmingly emotional and not intellectual. They hate his style. Anyway, I wish I could take Robbie and David and Dawn and Phil and Alice. My friends, I'm Dennis Prager, reminding you that Pragertopia makes a spectacular Father's Day gift. Get my